Hello, and welcome to the final part 4 of 4 of Unpopular Opinions. Lyme disease treatment should not be a war zone. If you haven't seen the previous video or videos, I urge you to do so to provide the best experience and understanding of this full video project. All the previous videos are linked in the description. Now, before we jump into my wife's story and her battle with chronic Lyme and its symptoms, I want to remind everyone watching that while giving feedback on your feelings in the comments is good, using the comments to mass essay post, be aggressive, gaslight, or manipulate is not. If your comment does not follow these 3 rules, it will be deleted or removed. I understand personal beliefs can lead to difficult discussions. If done with the intent to help someone understand your perspective while being open to understanding their perspective, it can be great. But these conversations should happen outside of the comment section. If you want to have a longer discussion with myself or another commenter, reach out to them privately and respectfully to engage in a further conversation. As with any chronic health condition or disease, the impact of its devastation goes beyond just the person experiencing the symptoms. It impacts their families, friends, and loved ones. I am very fortunate that I do not experience the symptoms of post-treatment Lyme disease syndrome, chronic Lyme disease, or multiple systemic infectious disease syndrome, or any other chronic illness. However, my wife Kathy has been combating chronic symptoms since March 2020. It began as a shooting, searing pain all over her body. There was no rhyme or reason to it, and would happen sporadically. There was also a continual aching, throbbing pain that just lived in her body. She felt it was just pain and it would run its course and then be gone. Then the COVID-19 pandemic happened. Schools closed, and she was a full-time mom, teacher, therapist, cook, etc. for our kids. During all this time, the pain was getting worse. She would have tremors, spasms, and more unusual symptoms. It was scary for both of us. She tested negative for COVID-19, and as the months went on, the pain and symptoms just kept increasing. In October 2020, while seeing her therapist, she shared her experiences of her symptoms. The therapist shared that the symptoms sounded very familiar to him. He then shared about his journey with chronic Lyme disease symptoms and thought she should look into it. Soon after, she was recommended to see a functional medicine provider. My wife did a number of tests recommended by this new medical provider. After the results, the provider assessed that she may have fibromyalgia or possibly multiple sclerosis or MS. The provider suggested several herb supplements and prescriptions, which she started to take. Around that time, she met with a pain management doctor that was recommended to her. During the initial appointment, she explained the symptoms and pain she was experiencing, to which the doctor basically told her there was nothing he could do for her. What made it more frustrating for her was this doctor didn't try anything in terms of testing or treatment. She was extremely disappointed by this outcome. In February 2021, our family moved to a city north of where we currently lived. At this time, she was looking for a new doctor as she was unhappy with the lack of help she received so far. She could no longer run and play with our kids, and the list of symptoms just continued to grow. She found a new general practitioner doctor, and they weren't sure what was going on either, but her new doctor recommended several blood tests and imaging in an attempt to find out more. All these tests came about with no real answers, so she referred her to a physical therapist and a neurologist. Now, my wife met with the neurologist in June 2021. The neurologist ran a number of tests and did more imaging. He was leaning towards multiple sclerosis, but he didn't see the marker in the brain, so he was unsure. He even did a Western blot test to confirm she had Lyme disease, but it came back negative. She was given more supplements and pain medications hoping to reduce the chronic symptoms and pain, but nothing worked. Despite the lack of results, she kept at it, just in case it took time for the medication to be effective. Meanwhile, the neurologist wanted to try nerve-blocking shots for the pain, which she agreed to. There were 100 injections done from the base of her skull and all over her back. These nerve blocks did nothing to reduce the pain and only caused my wife to cry while the pain increased during and after these injections. During summer 2021, her therapist had been urging her to do a special blood test for Lyme disease through IgNX. It was an immublot test, which is an alternative test to the standard Western blot test recommended by the CDC. Immublot looks for multiple pathogens instead of just one, leading to a more specific test. However, this test alone cost $1,700 and was not covered by insurance, so she was very reluctant about taking it because of that. But at the end of August 2021, after all the tests, imaging results, and 4 doctors coming back with no answers, she finally decided to take the recommended test. The results came back in October 2021 with the confirmation of positive markers for the BB bacteria, the cause for Lyme disease. She doesn't remember having a tick bite or having a bullseye rash in her past. The time she thought she could have received a tick bite was when she lived in Indiana over 10 years ago, or when she visited her sister who lived in Colorado. Both of these areas have ticks that carry the Lyme disease bacteria. But for her, the when didn't matter. What mattered is she knew what was wrong and could now seek help. So in November 2021, 20 months after her symptoms began, she was going to see a doctor who specializes in treating Lyme disease. He was located in Seattle, Washington, so she would have to travel out of state to see him. Even with our insurance not being able to cover the doctor visits, her not knowing what the treatment would entail, and that returning back to her normal may not happen at all, she began her journey of treatment. On her first meeting with her Lyme doctor, she was treated warmly and with respect. He explained everything about her results, the science, the biology, how the bacteria affects the body, in addition to explaining the medication and supplements purposes in detail. He also gave her a clinical diagnosis of the co-infections Babesia and Bartonella. The blood test didn't come back positive for these co-infections yet, but she exhibited the symptoms for them, and he wanted to treat for the co-infections as well. My wife loved this doctor's approach of educating the patient with real scientific data and actively listening to her concerns, and not just saying she needs to do treatment and not be able to ask why. For the first time in 20 months, she had hope. She soon began new antibiotics and herbal supplements and traveled to see him every month, then soon every other month for the next 2 years, until he closed his practice in May 2023 due to wanting to focus on performing research about Lyme disease and chronic symptoms. From 2021 to September 2022, she tried all different oral antibiotics and herbal combinations. Her doctor was very attentive to her progress or lack thereof. He would modify or change the medication when he and my wife didn't see any positive progress on reducing symptoms. During this time, her doctor would make sure to remind her that based on past and recent research, that antibiotic treatment didn't work for 50% of the patients suffering from chronic Lyme disease. He wanted her to understand that he would try everything he could, but it didn't guarantee healing. In July 2022, after a continued lack of progress, her specialist wanted to test for mold toxicity because the symptoms are similar to CLD. The test came back with their antibodies elevated, but nothing conclusive enough to diagnose mold toxicity as a cause. The specialist wanted to perform other tests, but after reviewing all the tests done by our neurologist previously, most of what he wanted to test for was already ruled out. He then told her if there were no improvements of her symptoms by October, he asked her to consider trying IV antibiotics. So October came around, and with no progress being made, she was referred to get a PICC line that would allow her medication to be delivered intravenously. At this time, my wife was in constant pain. She had started using a cane and a walker to get around. She spent most of her time in bed. She couldn't sleep through the night due to the pain and the insomnia. She felt like a mere shadow of her former self. She tired quickly and couldn't enjoy the things she once did, which include playing with our children. The PICC line was placed November 9, 2022. As soon as the nurse inserted the line, she began to feel a new sensation, a new pain and tightness in her chest. It was like a fist was squeezing on her heart and lungs. The nurse said it could be irritation from the line and her body just getting used to it. However, the pain didn't go away and it only got worse. Imaging was done and the PICC line wasn't too close to her heart, and they couldn't find any reason for the pain and symptoms she was experiencing after getting the PICC line. There was no fix to the issue, so she decided to deal with the additional pain. She had to have daily infusions into her body, and weekly a nurse would come to clean and change her PICC dressing, which luckily was covered by insurance. In January 2023, she began to have issues eating and drinking. Her body was rejecting everything. She couldn't eat or drink without becoming ill. Sometimes it would be when she thought of food or as soon as the food hit her mouth. She did several tests, which included a stool test, stomach imaging, endoscope, and a colonoscopy. All these tests came back clean. However, the food issues continued. She changed up her diet, but all the food she was supposed to eat, such as fresh veggies and fruits, ended up triggering her issues. While there has been some improvement of her stomach and digestive issues, as of July 2024, they still continue. In February 2023, she began seeing a new doctor who specialized in Lyme in California, a referral from her previous specialist who closed his practice to focus on Lyme research. The new specialist reviewed her files and we continued the same IV treatment. She ran some additional tests to see if we could find out why she still wasn't responding to the treatment. While the test did not reveal why the treatment wasn't working, they did confirm that my wife has the bacterial co-infection Babesia, which the previous doctor diagnosed and attempted to treat. Several months passed, and she continued to not improve. Things were getting worse no matter what we tried. We were running out of money and gaining debt. She's becoming more bedridden and having more trouble walking. I was taking more and more time off work to be home when she couldn't walk or move anymore. We even had to visit the ER where her heart was evaluated and their test came back clean. After this, her general practitioner had her get an echocardiogram, which came up clean as well. During the 9 months of IV medications, we didn't see much improvement. We changed medications a couple of times, and there was one more her doctor wanted to try, but it was going to cost 3 times more than the previous one we were already doing. After several difficult discussions, we decided to not do the new treatment and stop treatment. Knowing that my wife's symptoms could get worse, I met with my manager and let him know of the situation. We had discussions about what to do moving forward and if I could meet all my job responsibilities. I shared that if I was to be in the office and required for 40 hours each week, I would be able to. I then presented a proposal to my manager and human resources how I could meet my job duties while working a hybrid schedule and maintain my billable hours for the clinic I worked in. However, shortly after this, I met with my manager again and was told that the CEO and human resources want to keep all work at their company on an in-office schedule and would not be permitting hybrid schedules. So on July 28th, 2023, I was fired from my job. My wife's PICC line was removed in August 2023, just before insurance ran out. She saw her doctor in California once more in September, and then we stopped all treatment. During her 9 months of the IV antibiotic treatment, and after she stopped treatment, I kept a daily log of her severity of 13 specific symptoms, 1 being not much pain discomfort, while 5 being unbearable pain and discomfort. During her 9 months of IV treatment, her average severity of symptoms was a 2.33 out of 5. In the past 11 months without treatment, her symptom severity has had an average of 3.5 out of 5. Her daily symptom pain and discomfort went from 46% severity to 70% severity, a 24% increase. Over the past 4 years, she has been tested for many different medical conditions, autoimmune diseases, and cancers before and after her positive Lyme disease diagnosis. In total, there have been 20 plus possible diagnoses we've tested for, and nothing has come up positive or conclusive as the problem for my wife's symptoms. Without the suggestion from her therapist to get the IgNX test done, we would still be searching for a cause that fit her myriad of symptoms. At this time, I've been working part-time while searching for a full-time hybrid or remote job. Her health continues to decline. We've received some help from family and friends, which we are extremely grateful for. Unfortunately, the journey of navigating this disease is not over, and we are unsure when it will or if it will ever be over. My wife's story is heartbreaking, but her experiences are not an isolated event. Thousands of individuals who suffer from chronic symptoms of Lyme disease have similar and even more traumatic experiences. On May 17, 2024, a woman from Quebec named Stephanie Lavoie chose doctor-assisted death because she was in agony with no end in sight due to her chronic Lyme symptoms, which started back from a tick bite 8 years prior. While her Lyme disease diagnosis was confirmed in the United States, Mexico, and Germany, it was never confirmed in her home province since Lavoie's condition didn't meet all the markers. So because of this, her treatment would not be covered and everything would be paid out of pocket. Before Stephanie chose a doctor-assisted death as the pain became intolerable, she described feeling her body nearing the end. She said, "After 8 years of fighting, of being strong with fantastic people around me, I am at peace with laying down my arms." While this gut-wrenching story had a more extreme result, the call for change is the same as in every story with the patient who suffers from chronic symptoms. So, as a world community and more specifically North America, what change should we advocate for? Number 1, stop the infighting and contention between the two different theories regarding the cause of chronic symptoms of Lyme disease. We need to work towards collaborative discussions towards research, treatment, and reduce the amount of fraudulent treatments. When many see the anger and frustration from both sides, underneath I see concern and anxiousness. Anxiousness from doctors and researchers that patients are accepting harmful treatment and the patients are being taken advantage of. Anxiousness from patients wondering if there's an answer to the pain they've had endured for years, if it will be affordable or even accessible. Only collaborative action on both sides will reduce these feelings of anxiousness. We all want everyone to be healthy, regardless of our differences. Our focus, regardless of the theory of Lyme we advocate for, should be, okay, this isn't working. What else should we try? What else should we test? Instead of digging our feet in the sand, simply claiming each other is wrong. This should be a collaboration, not a war. Number 2, advocate for more grants and funding toward research toward new affordable treatments backed by successful clinical trials of PTLDS, CLD, and MSIDS. Since 1987, the idea of how to treat Lyme disease has advanced more and more since then. Each year, research and testing provides new information. With the improvement of research equipment and practices, along with the studies of long COVID-19 which led to the recognition of chronic symptoms for multiple disease agents, the hope for treatment breakthroughs is higher than ever. Number 3, advocate for healthcare insurance, government and private, to provide better coverage of current treatments or allow coverage in regards to PTLDS, CLD, and MSIDS diagnoses. Have the CDC update their Lyme testing criteria and methods, allow for collaboration between medical providers in different states and countries to confirm diagnoses and allow coverage of treatment. As stated in my wife's and Stephanie's story, affordable and accessible treatment is one of the biggest hurdles for those suffering from chronic Lyme symptoms. We need to find a way to have all healthcare insurance provide affordable and accessible treatment options. Recent advocating efforts have increased after the release of The Quiet Epidemic in 2022, a documentary about the history of Lyme disease and the conflict between the medical community on how to diagnose and treat chronic symptoms of Lyme disease. In 2023 and 2024, more and more people from all walks of life are advocating for change in the healthcare industry, local and international. In the end, it's up to you to make a choice. Each person on this earth has their own list of problems they work through. It's tough to add another problem to solve to your list. Some problems with little to no solutions to solve them. In the case for me and my wife, we feel at this time there are solutions to the Lyme disease epidemic. We just need to continue to fight for them to happen. I thank you for watching this video and hope that it will encourage you to do something to make these solutions happen. It can be as small as sharing any one of the videos, learning more about Lyme disease, comforting a friend who's dealing with chronic symptoms of Lyme disease or any chronic illness. Any effort to be kind and understanding is a worthy effort. I am AK Thrive, and this is an unpopular opinion.